Hi, my name is Kurt from Codecrafters. This video is from my Roblox Masterclass course, which you can find more about in the description below. Okay, so last lesson we started off looking how to change properties, okay? And we looked at how to change properties with 4 different data types. Now those data types are very common, however, there are 4 additional ones that are also very common that you need to know about. Okay, now I know I said last lesson that these ones are a little bit more difficult, which they are. It's more so you just have to remember more, but I'm sure you'll be fine. I'm going to go through this nice and slowly anyway. Okay, so click on the part, get your script up, and go down to position. Okay, so position is the first one we're going to have a look at. Now, this has 3 numbers, which is a bit difficult to work with. Okay, now if you would reference position, game.workspace.part.position, it's a vector 3 value. Okay, but why isn't it a number if it has a number? Well, we can't just set the position to equal 10, for example, because it has 3 numbers. So it's written in the properties here as 3 numbers with commas. So why can't we put commas? So 10, 20, and 5. Why can't we do that? The reason is because the script does not understand 3 numbers at once. Okay? Doesn't understand it. You have to be specific on what those 3 numbers mean. Okay? We're basically saying the position is equal to 10 is equal to 20 and is equal to 5 at the same time. Doesn't make sense to the script. Okay, again, the script is very specific. You're going to learn this a lot. I'm going to say this a lot throughout the course, but it's very specific on what it needs. Okay, you need to be very specific on what you give it. So you have to use an entirely new thing called vector 3. Now, vector 3 basically allows the script to understand 3 numbers at once. Okay, it does that by basically saying the first number is the x value, the second number is the y value, and the third number is the z value. Instead of just giving it 3 numbers at once, it's telling the script what those 3 numbers mean. Okay, so we write vector 3 after the property name and after the equal sign. Okay, so here goes vector 3, like that there. Okay, now vector 3 is a function of sorts. Okay, there's a couple of different types of functions. You'll learn about them all throughout the course, but it's a function of kind. Okay, so it's a function with a little point. Okay, so it's a point or a dot after vector 3, and it has some kind of sub functions, I guess. Again, you'll learn all the proper terms for all this later on, but yeah, and there's quite a few to choose from here, but we are just looking at .new for now. Okay, so vector 3 .new with a pair of brackets after it. Okay, that brings us to this little menu here where it says x colon number, y colon number, and z colon number. You don't need to write the x colon bit. It's just telling you to give the x value as a number, the y value as a number, and the z value as a number. Okay, so 3 numbers. First one's x, second one's y, and third one's z. So let's give it 10, 20, and 5, like I was going to do last time. Okay, close the bracket, and that's it. That's your vector 3. Okay, so it's you need to write vector 3 first, .new. The reason why it's .new is because we're giving it a new set of 3 numbers. Okay, there are other methods which we'll look at later on in the course. Again, you will know all this eventually, but for now it's just introducing the basics, which is just .new for now. It's simpler just to learn that one first and then look at all the other types later on. Okay, your 3 numbers go in there separated by commas. Okay, and I always put spaces after my commas. Again, makes it more readable and easier to read. Again, if you don't want to, it won't throw any errors, it won't break anything, but it's just highly recommended. Okay, and this here is your vector 3. Okay, now that's quite difficult. That's quite, for a couple lessons in, going to that is quite not difficult, but it's quite a lot. So If you're not quite okay on that just yet, that's fine. It's quite a big step, okay? But you'll be happy to hear that the next two properties follow a very similar format to that, okay? So vector 3 can be used for most properties that contain three numbers, but there are some which you can't do it for. For example, color. You cannot use vector 3 for color. Now, the reason why, if you paid very close attention to one of the earlier lessons where we talk about properties, okay, which is color uses RGB, whereas position uses X, Y, and Z. So the numbers, even though there's three numbers, they represent different things. RGB goes from 0 to 255, whereas position can take any number, including negatives. So it makes sense to give it a different data type, because vector 3 wouldn't quite work for it. Because you can have a negative position, but you can't have a negative color. You can't have -5 amounts of red. Doesn't make sense. Okay. So let's reference the part again, and let's reference the color property. And this one's color free. So we write this in the exact same way as before. So but instead of writing vector 3, we write color free. Now the good bit about this is the name of the data type is always how you start it off. So if it tells you positions of vector 3, you start off by writing vector 3. Then usually it follows by .new, okay? Apart from the last property, the last data type we're going to look at. So it's a bit easier way to remember it, I guess, thinking of it that way, okay? So color free .new we're going to be using, and in here you can put in three numbers. Again, instead of an X, Y, Z, it's a red, green, and blue, okay? Now these, even though RGB is from 0 to 255, in colorfree.new, you write it from 0 to 1, okay? So if you want 255 amounts of red, you would just say 1. So let's put 1 for red, 0.5 for green, and 0.5 for blue, and we get a kind of pink color there, okay? And that is your color free, okay? So color free is kind of a property on itself. It's only really used for color, nothing else. But it's just for those cases where vector free you can't use, okay? Next, we have brick color. Now, brick color is, you can use it for this one here. Now, brick color is a weird property, or weird data type. It has a bit more to it, which again we will look at later on in the course. But you can't use something like string or anything like that, because if you click on click on brick color, it has a little palette for you to use here. But actually, there's a lot more of these colors that exist. They're just not shown on the palette. So you get into all this kind of thing about indexes and stuff, but ignore all that for now. You will learn it eventually, okay? But for now, we're just going to accept that brick color, you can't use something like string or anything else like that for it. It has to be the brick color property. Sorry, brick color data type, okay? So let's reference it. Let's use the script.method again. Let's use script.parent .part .brick color. See here, the data type is literally called brick color, okay? Brick color, again, .new, okay? And inside here, I know it tells you here to use a number, but we're going to ignore that and use a string instead, okay? Now, you're going to think, why the hell are we, changing it from a value of a number to a string? That's because we are putting in here inside the string, the name of the brick color, okay? So each brick color has its own name, but it also has a number, okay? If you can remember all of the numbers, then great, but it's much simpler, much easier just to use the name, okay? So using the string. But again, we will look at that later on. So you can just write in here the name of the brick color. So you can scroll down here and you can see all the different names that you can pick from. Let's pick, I don't know, faded green, for example, and that there is our brick color. Okay, so brick color there, and we're choosing faded green for this one. Okay. Finally, we are looking at one last data type, which is a bit different to the other ones. Okay, and one example of this is material, which is here. Sorry, material is under appearance here. Okay, the material is a list, and we use this data type whenever you're looking at lists. So script.parent.part.material, and this is important. It will tell you for any list properties, it will tell you enum dot and then another word as well. That's very important. Okay, basically, this accepts an enum. Now enum basically is a collection of all of the different lists that you can have in Roblox Studio. One of those lists is a list of the materials. Okay, so you can't just say enum and then go from there. You have to be specific, because enum is like saying you need to pick. You're getting all of the lists. You need to select the one you want. Okay, which is the list of all the materials. So you will need to say enum, like that there, dot material. Very important, dot material. Okay, because you're getting all of the lists, and you're picking the one list you want, the list of materials. Okay, and then you want to pick an entry from that list. So any here that you can pick. Okay, so let's pick grass, for example. Okay, just like that, and that there is your enum. One example I do need to show you about enums is that the name of the property does not always equal to the name of the name of the list. For example, for the shape property, if you were to say script.parent.part.shape, it says enum.partType. So why it's very important to look at that. Don't assume that it's going to be the same as the name of the property, because it's not always the case. Okay, yeah. So they are your extra 4 data types. And now there are a few more, but they're not used for parts. They're not used very commonly at all. So we're not going to cover those just yet. But these are the main 8 that you will need to know. Okay. Now you can, with this, you can now change about 97% of all properties in Roblox Studio. Not just for parts, but for anything else. Okay, so it's up to you now to apply all this to some unfamiliar cases, unfamiliar properties, and you can change them just by using that. Okay, one last bit about properties is adding and taking away values from properties. So in order to add, take away, times, or divide values of properties, okay, you need to know the symbols to use them. Okay, so I'm going to just write them in notes here. Okay, so the symbol for plus is this here. Okay, you've probably obviously seen that before. The symbol for a minus sign is just a dash, like that there. The symbol for the times, okay, is this little asterisk or star here. Okay, has to be that one there. And then for divide, it's this slash here. Now it's the slash that tilts to the right, not the slash that tilts to the left. That's different. Okay, tilts to the right. Very important. Okay, so there are your 4 different signs that you can use. So let's look at these and some examples. Okay, so let's say you wanted to, instead of giving it a whole new position, let's say just increase the Y position by 5. So the part stays in the same position, but just goes up a bit by 5. Okay, so we first reference the position. So game.workspace.part.position. Okay, you make it equal to. Okay, now this is where it gets a little bit confusing. This is the bit that is the most difficult to understand. Okay, which is you then repeat saying game.workspace.part.position. The reason why you repeat it is because you're saying that the position is equal to the current position plus another value. Okay. You can't ignore this bit and just say this bit here, because you're not making anything equal to. You're not following this structure here. Okay. It has to be written like this here. Again, it's quite long-winded, but it's the only way you can do it, unfortunately, for now. So let's add a value onto here. Now, because position takes vector 3s, we need to use a vector 3 value. So we can say vector3 dot new. The second number is the y, so we can say 0, 5, 0, like that there. And that will take the current position and add 5 along the y onto it. Okay. You can also do other things like divide the transparency by 2. To do that, we would say game.workspace.part.transparency is equal to game.workspace.part.transparency divided by 2. Okay, so just be comfortable with using those 4 symbols with your properties. It's sometimes easier just to add a value or take away a value instead of giving it a whole new value. Okay, and they're mostly used for vector 3, but any property involving numbers, so number, integer, vector 3 and color 3, you could technically use these for. Okay, so hopefully that's been a good overview of all of the different data types that you could use. Okay, very important you practice all of these, but I'm not just leaving you there, because in all of the next lessons we will be looking at a lot of properties as well. Okay, and I'll be giving you some different examples of different objects, so you will have a bit of an overview as well, but it is important that you try some of these out yourself. Okay, so yeah, try all those out, get comfortable with those, but don't worry too much, as you will be using those a lot throughout the course. And next lesson, we're going to be having a look at another kind of function called the weight function. I'm going to find out what that does and how it can be used in our script.